Section 19 of Library of the World's Best Mystery and Detective Stories, Volume 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Library of the World's Best Mystery and Detective Stories, Volume 3, by Julian Hawthorne, Editor. Section 19, Without the Wedding Garment, by Anonymous. On one of Lady George Athol's first Thursdays, her rooms were filling to overflow. Barn Street was blocked with carriages. Lady George stood on the big square landing at the top of the stairs and gave her hand so often that after a time it seemed no longer her own. The people thronged up and up. The current appeared unending, and she felt almost as if the circle must be complete, and the string of guests must be revolving, as in a child's toy the figures that are gummed on to a tape go up to the mill, move in endless succession, up and up and up. Her tongue was tired, too, and so was her smile, but each was kept in active work. "How do you do? How do you do? How do you do? Your son not with you? No? I'm sorry. What lovely flowers! How do you do? How do you do? No, almost cold. How do you do? Yes, stifling. Ah, Mrs. Keith, I scarcely thought you would get away. Dull, was it? What, none of the right people? Didn't suppose for an instant there would be. Let me stand here for one moment. I want so much to know who someone is who came in just before us, a beautiful woman, quite too lovely. Mrs. Venables, probably. Not Mrs. Venables? Fair? Lady Fleet? No. Miss Adair? No? Then I can't tell you till I see her. She's coming up now, there, with the fair hair. No, in front of the Brabazons. Lady George had the mischance to drop her bouquet, and in the momentary confusion a name was lost. The lady who advanced behind the unheard name was fair to whiteness almost. Her hair was of a peculiar shade of yellow like pale sulphur. Her eyes were of the lightest grey. Lady George gave her hand and said, "How do you do?" The Brabazons occupied her with some elaborate explanation about why they had been unable to dine in Barn Street, and in the meantime the lady with a murmured word had passed on. Lady George looked after her. She was bowing to some one. She was bowing again, and now again. Apparently she had many friends in the room. Mr. Brabazon was talking to Mrs. Keith, who, as soon as he had moved away, turned to her hostess. "She is handsome. I hope your flowers were not spoiled. I didn't catch the name." The lady was lost in the smart crowd. "Neither did I," said Lady George blankly, "and I don't know her from Adam. She must be some friend of the girls. Joan or Maud must have sent her a card. My memory's so bad. I can't leave this. If you come across either of my daughters, will you send her to me, Mrs. Keith? Oh, here is my husband. George, George, go into the room and tell me who the striking-looking woman with the yellow hair is. There are dozens of 'em. Which? I'll show you," said Mrs. Keith. She was interested. The two moved away, but like the dove from the ark, they did not return. Lady George, after 10 minutes or so, felt that she had done her duty, and she left the top of the stairs. She forgot the unknown lady, and it was half an hour before she came across one of her daughters. "Maud, I had something to ask you, and I forget what." "Oh, yes. Who is I can't see her now. Yes, there she is, that woman with the yellow hair standing by the mantelpiece." "In white? I don't know." "But neither do I. I thought you would be able to tell me. Find Joan and send her to me." It was 20 minutes before Lady George's second daughter appeared before her. By that time the lady had moved her place. "I know the one you mean," said Joan, "but I don't know who she is. She has very curious hair, and she is in white." "Yes." "Well, I don't know." Mrs. Keith came up. "Lord George doesn't know," she said. "I can easily find out," said Joan. "She has been talking to Charlie Vincent for the last 10 minutes. I'll ask him." She moved away as she spoke. Young Vincent was leaning against a pillar and laughing heartily. He was the butt for the moment of a chaff of two of his friends. Joan heard a few of their remarks. "He didn't mind, don't you know, awfully pretty woman like that. Neither would you. Said she met him at Nice, and dear old Charlie's never been out of the country in his life." Vincent caught Miss Athol's eye. "You are going to let me take you down to supper?" he said to her. "I will see later on," said Joan. "Just now I want you to tell me something. What is the name of the lady you were talking to a few minutes ago?" He began to laugh. "At what?" said Joan. "Well, the whole thing. Those two chaps have been chaffing me like anything as it is. You mean the handsome woman with the fair hair?" "Yes. I was standing near her when she turned round and put out her hand. She said, 'Mr. Vincent, isn't it?' and I said yes, and then she said she hadn't seen me for ever so long, and I didn't like to pretend that I did not know her, so I said that it was rather a long time, and then we talked for a bit. And you don't know who she is? Never saw her before in my life. Who is she?" "Where did she think she had met you?" said Joan, without answering his question. "Well, you see, that didn't come out till quite the end. She said it must be 2 years since the days at Nice, and by that time I was so steeped in deception I had allowed my reminiscences of our former acquaintance to go to such lengths in order to coincide with hers that I had not the face to tell her that I had never been at Nice in my life. She mistook me for some one else. I knew that after the first half-dozen words. But you see, I had woven such a tangled web that I couldn't get out of it even if I wanted to, and those two chaps say I didn't." Joan laughed. "She is very handsome," she said, "but I'm not quite sure that she has good style." "And you won't come down to supper?" "Not now. I would ask her if I knew her name," said Vincent. "I must get Lady George to tell me when I see her." "You won't do that," said Joan, and she left him with a smile that he failed to interpret. Miss Athol went back to her mother. On the way she passed the fair unknown talking to Mr. Brabazon. "I watched that," Mrs. Keith was saying. "She dropped her fan. Well, Joan, what had Mr. Vincent to tell you?" "Nothing," said Miss Athol. "The mystery remains a mystery. She mistook him for some one else. She bowed to Lady Beckenham, I think. Here is Lady Beckenham. I will ask her." "Not to me," said Lady Beckenham. Lady George explained the situation. "If I were in your case, I should go to her myself," said Lady Beckenham. "I must, I think," said Lady George, and she sought her unknown guest. "You will pardon me," she said, "but I did not hear your name, and my memory is bad. I do not recall your face." "I am Mrs. Darbyshire," said the lady. "I was so sorry not to return your call on Monday. It was good of you to come and see me so soon." "Darbyshire? Call?" Lady George looked at her vacantly. The lady caught something of her hostess's expression. "Can there be any mistake?" she said. "I don't know you, of course, because I did not see you when you called. You heard from my dear friends the Van Lindens of New York, and you came to see me and asked me to your party?" Lady George looked more vacant. "You are Mrs. Sefton, surely?" said the lady. "There is some mistake," said Lady George. "I am Lady George Athol." Mrs. Darbyshire started to her feet. "How can I sufficiently apologize?" she said. "I am a stranger in London, and I only arrived from New York last week. I had an introduction to Mrs. Sefton. I do not know her personally, so I did not discover my mistake. I came in a hansom, and I suppose the driver mistook my direction." Lady George smiled graciously. "The mistake is easily explained if Mrs. Sefton lives in Barn Square." "That is it, I think," said Mrs. Darbyshire, "and this is Barn Street." "I am so distressed this should have happened," said Mrs. Darbyshire. "Not at all," said Lady George. "You found some friends here, I hope, and it has given us the pleasure of your company." The lady, with reiterated apologies, bowed and took her departure. A man who passed her on the stairs looked at her fixedly and hurried up to his hostess. "Will you tell me that lady's name?" he said. "5 minutes ago I might have asked you, Colonel Weston. She is a Mrs. Darbyshire, I believe. Her cabman mistook Barn Street for Barn Square." "You know nothing about her?" "Nothing." "Then excuse me." Colonel Weston hurried down to the hall. Mrs. Darbyshire was coming from the cloakroom. "Mademoiselle Lestock will permit me to see her to her hotel?" The lady started, then smiled and bowed. "Monsieur est bien aimable," she said. He followed her to the hansom and got in. He spoke up through the trap. "Drive slowly to the end of the street, and I will direct you." He turned then to his companion. "We meet again, mademoiselle." "Oui, monsieur." "Mademoiselle has, perhaps, few friends in London?" "Not many, monsieur." "Mademoiselle, however, starts well under such a wing as that of Lady George Athol." "Without doubt, monsieur." "A more softly feathered wing than that of the law, mademoiselle. You should know." "Monsieur is facetious." "I should like to see what you have in your pocket, mademoiselle." "My handkerchief, monsieur." "What else?" "A meagre purse." "What else?" "That is all." "That figure clad in dark blue is a policeman. What else, mademoiselle?" "Only this," said Mrs. Darbyshire. She handed him a small diamond brooch as she spoke. "Only that?" That is all, monsieur. I have had no luck." "You are sure that is all? A word to my friend in blue—" "Save yourself the trouble, monsieur, that is all." "Good night, mademoiselle. Good night, for the old sake's sake." "Good night," said Mrs. Darbyshire. Colonel Weston called another cab and drove back to Barn Street. "A chance likeness, perhaps, to some one I met in Paris," he said to Lady George. "One is easily mistaken. I have just picked this up," he added, putting the brooch into her hand. "Do you know whose it is?" "Some one is sure to claim it," said Lady George. A few days later it chanced that Lady George Atholl and Mrs. Sefton met. "I suppose you heard from your friend Mrs. Darbyshire of her coming to my crush in mistake of yours?" "Mrs. Darbyshire?" said Mrs. Sefton. "But she came to me the night before last for you. Her cabman mistook—" Lady George opened her eyes. "When did that happen?" "On Wednesday. I have good reason to remember the day, for I lost an emerald bracelet." Section 19.